Hey, I want to take a moment today to make a very serious video asking people out there to please keep in your hearts, in your minds, and in your prayers, if you're so inclined, the people that have been affected by the coronavirus. Now, notice I say affected, not infected. Because when it comes to infection, to me, I don't think it's really that big of a deal. I think it's overblown. Now, am I trying to belittle the fact that people have died? No. It's always a tragedy when people die. But does the coronavirus being a factor now really make that big of a difference in what happens anyway in these months? It hasn't. Now, you might think that's funny to hear from someone who lives in Washington State where 10 people have died in the last week from coronavirus. But to those people, I say, the only reason it's been 10 people over the last week is because we just started testing for it. It would have been actually way more than that if we'd been testing for it since the beginning, since back in January when it first showed up here. But we haven't. So the numbers of people who have died from it are way higher than 10. In fact, I would say in every state it's way higher than they think it is. It's just simply they're noticing now because they're testing for it and they're aware of it. But people have been dying since January from coronavirus. And you might be saying, well, that's making it seem worse than what we thought it was, not better. So why are you being so flippant about it? Well, the reason I'm being a little bit flippant about it is because people were dying from the coronavirus since January. But no one noticed. The public health officials didn't go, oh my God, there's a lot more people dying from upper respiratory illness this year than normal. These people in high-risk groups are dying off in droves this year. Didn't happen. Pretty much normal numbers of people have been dying this year from upper respiratory illnesses as die most every other year. Hasn't been much of a change. So even though before it was just illnesses like influenza, pneumonia, bronchitis that were contributing to all the deaths, now they have an additional one, coronavirus. But the numbers, the overall numbers, didn't really go up that much, which tells you there's probably a lot of crossing there, meaning a lot of people that died from the coronavirus could have likely died from the influenza or bronchitis or something else if they hadn't gotten the coronavirus. So there's really not this high number of fatalities from the coronavirus people like to portray, because you can't look at a certain group of people that tend to get killed off every year and then add one more thing to the mix and pretend like that's more important. You have to look at the overall numbers every year with these factors that actually die because of those factors. And coronavirus hasn't made that big of a change. I know a lot of people like to blow it up like it is that big of a deal, but it isn't. If you're healthy, chances are you won't even know it if you get it. Of people in high-risk groups and high-risk areas who are tested, only about 20% of them show symptoms. That's 80% that don't. And if you take into account all the people that never show enough symptoms to get tested, it's probably more like 95, 98% chance you're not going to have a problem if you're healthy. So even though it's horrible that people die every year that are in these high-risk groups, mostly elderly people, it's not a tragedy. It's not a national tragedy. It's not a reason to change the way we live. It's just not that bad. It is sad when it happens, especially if it happens to someone you know, or to you personally, I guess. But it isn't a national crisis like some people want to make it out to be. It's just one more reason that people in certain groups get sick. And it is very transmittable. That's one thing to worry about. But like I say, unless you live with or frequently visit someone who is in a high-risk group, don't really worry about it. If you have a loved one that is in one of those groups, take extra precautions, but otherwise, not a big deal. And that's why I said, keep in your hearts and minds and prayers the people that are affected, not infected. I'm talking about people like me, good, innocent people, healthy adults like myself. I'm always the person I'm most concerned about, and this has affected me. Now, you might ask, well, how have you been affected by the coronavirus? You don't look sicker than usual, some of you are saying to yourselves out there. Well, I'm not really. I did just get over food poisoning. My family did because we went to famous Dave's Barbecue and got pork ribs, and we all got food poisoning. But doing pretty good other than that. But if you remember back in January, I went to SHOT Show. And if you're familiar with SHOT Show, you know there's a lot of Asian people at SHOT Show, especially a lot of Chinese people. And the disease was very much around in January. So there were people there with it, I guarantee it. Well, if you remember my coverage of SHOT Show, there was one gun that I fondled quite inappropriately several times during my visit there. And that was the Chiappa Rhino 300 DSL. X, the all stainless steel Chiappa Rhino. And no, I didn't get infected by handling the gun, even though I did get a little inappropriate with it. It's nothing like that. It's just that this gun gave me a big old gun boner, and I decided I have to have this gun. And I was like, when is it going to be available? And they were like, well, it should be available at the beginning of February. And then it was, mid-February to late February. Then it was, last week of February. Well, it didn't show up the last week of February either. So I decided to write an email to one of the marketing people over at Chiappa and say, hey, where are the guns? Well, I got a response back today. And they said basically it was scheduled to be February or March when these guns arrived to distributors, but now because of the coronavirus, the shipment from Italy has been delayed. And I don't understand this, to be honest, because these are inanimate objects. When they get over here, if you open up the crate, it's not like the Chiappas are going to jump out and start making out with strangers and coughing and sneezing on everybody. They're inanimate objects. When the crate arrives, spray it down with Lysol. And then, maybe as an extra precaution, tell the distributors you ship it to, hey, you might not want to lick the guns for a couple of days. I think most of us could handle that, not licking the guns for a couple of days. So I don't really understand why their guns aren't being imported, but they're not because of the coronavirus, because of the hysteria, because of people freaking out. So, like I said, I just wanted you to keep in your hearts and your minds and your prayers the people like myself, the good, law-abiding, honest citizens who now can't get the guns we want because of the coronavirus and the hysteria that has come from it.